Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Councilmember Green is signing autographs.
Put it on your neck.
Can I get your autograph later? All right, good. We'll start tonight with a roll call from our city clerk, Kathy Valdez.
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
And I have a note here about closed session, but I don't think we have a closed session or a report, so we'll skip that. Councilmember Melendez is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Please rise and put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and our city clerk has some procedural items, and you might want to dial this volume back just a little bit. Mic seems a little hot tonight. Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to remind everyone that the Vista Municipal Code requires members of the public to observe order and decorum at the meeting and to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. The ordinance was adopted to allow for public input and to facilitate city business without disruption of the meeting. Students wishing to receive credit for attending this evening's meeting must stay for a minimum of 1 hour. However, we ask that you stay for the completion of an item rather than leaving in the middle of a discussion. When you're ready to leave, you may ask one of the staff members at the back of the room to sign your paper. Thank you.
Okay, and any member of the public may address the city council on agency-related matters that are not on the agenda by submitting a request to speak slip. If you are participating via Zoom, use the raise your hand feature. Actually, a correction to my notes here. Tonight's oral communications are to be limited to the discussion item that we have on the agenda this evening. And normal oral communication opportunities not available at a special meeting.
You're open to having oral communications.
Okay, never mind. Starting again, any member of the public may address the city council on agency-related matters not on the agenda this evening by submitting a request to speak slip. If you're participating via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature by pressing *9 now. If you would like to speak, the number of speakers that will be heard during this segment is limited to 10. Any remaining speakers will be heard under the second oral communications item. Do we have some oral communications this evening? We have Joe Hood with us as our first oral communication speaker.
Two parts of communications tonight. The first about the current cap, and the next about where I think we should go. I am currently deeply disappointed by Vista's current cap and lack of meaningful progress. The cap has only 7 strategies and only 13 measures and no goals with targeted completion dates. How does anybody hold anybody responsible for anything? Since the last capped update in 2021, 7 of the 13 measures appear not to have been started and are not in the 18 pages of progress comments that I read. Some of the accomplishments have purchased 4 EVs. Okay. Plan to install 65 EV chargers, 1/3 of which are destined for the city's public works location adjacent to household hazardous waste collection, with a claim that these may be for city fleet and, quote, general public use. Really? General public use on city maintenance property? Street lighting projects for 3 areas in the city. My neighborhood must have no non-working or needed streetlights and no needed upgrades. Because it's not included in any of the proposed improvements. Plans for solar on Fire Station 3 in the Civic Center parking lot, but none on the vast majority of city facilities. Let's get our share of the $33 million that Poway just got. A grant for 130 trees and some improvements along a part of Santa Fe when American Forest says we need 36,000 trees to reach tree equity. San Diego received a grant of $10 million to plant thousands of trees in vulnerable neighborhoods. Vista needs to apply for these larger grants. A decision to join CEA, which costs almost nothing and takes little effort. I say, ouch. When we speak for a few minutes and then listen to the council discuss the cap for hours, I fail to see a dialogue that is expected during what I imagine to be a community workshop. Last week, you made an excellent decision to form an environmental commission to help meet our crisis. Thank you deeply. Now, let's get serious. We must act boldly. Climate change is code red for humanity. Given these time limits, I'll offer some suggestions when we get to D1. Thanks.
Okay, we have one discussion item this evening, our Climate Action Plan update. If there are any members of the public that wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature or by pressing *9 or submitting a request to speak card here at the dais. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Our Assistant City Manager, Imelda Huerta, will introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Imelda Huerta, Assistant City Manager, and with me today I have our recently hired Climate Action Plan Program Administrator, Cassidy McCarthy, and we will be giving you a brief presentation on the progress staff has made on the Climate Action Plan, or CAP. Starting with a quick piece on the background, then we will review the current CAP-related projects that staff has been working on. Then we will touch on our CAP-related grants. At the end, we will be happy to discuss any current projects and present and get direction from council and on what other projects in the CAP staff should focus on. And I will pass it on to Cassidy to give a brief background.
Hi, Mayor and City Council. Great to be here. The City of Vista's Climate Action Plan was first adopted in 2012, and the most recent update was in 2021. The updated CAP provides a comprehensive roadmap to reduce greenhouse gas, or GHG, emissions and addresses the challenges of climate change in the City of Vista. The City of Vista's CAP establishes GHG emission reduction targets for 2030 and helps the city achieve multiple community goals, such as lowering energy costs, reducing air pollution, supporting local economic development, and improving public health and the quality of life. The CAP update identifies 7 strategies and 13 measures to help the city reach its GHG reduction goals. Since 2021, staff has been moving forward with several projects tied to these strategies and measures that are listed on the table shown. While we will not be going over this table in detail, we will be presenting on projects under strategies 1, 4, and 5. Staff is looking into projects that fall under the remaining 4 strategies. So I'll start with strategy 1. Strategy 1 is to increase the use of zero-emission alternative fuel vehicles. And the first measure within strategy 1 is T1, to transition to a clean and more fuel-efficient municipal vehicle fleet. The goal listed in the CAP update is to replace 47 vehicles to electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid electric vehicles by 2030. So far, the city has been able to replace 6 of the vehicles, 4 of them being purchased this year. And transitioning to EVs will continue to be a priority as the city replaces its vehicles so that we can attempt to reach the goal, the eventual goal. From here, I'll talk about the second measure within strategy 1, which is to increase EV charging stations at public facilities. The goal listed in the CAP update is to install 20 level 2 or better EV charging stations at city-owned facilities by 2030. With funds from the American Rescue Plan Act and state funding, the city is currently working on capital improvement project number 8902, which will install 65 new EV charging stations at 12 city-owned properties throughout the city for city fleet and general public use. The project includes site analysis and planning, all design and permitting, all construction costs, and maintenance of the equipment. The 12 locations shown in this table include 7 parks, 2 municipal facilities, 2 fire stations, and 1 in a public parking lot. Staff has procured a consultant, NV5, and the design is underway to submit SDG&E new service applications, which is a critical path to completion. The new EV service column has a few to-be-determined notations, and that is because the electrical engineer is currently evaluating if a new service will need to be added to those locations or not. The main improvements and studies that were noticed so far is that all of the locations will require ADA improvements for the use of these charging stations, and the fire stations will require a load study to ensure they can facilitate the car chargers. In addition, NV5 is assisting with the electrical design for SDG&E service upgrades and will be pursuing the customer-owned infrastructure and chargers options. The customer-owned infrastructure is the city's approach to have control over our stations and our rates with no revenue sharing. Rebates are subject to approval, and we do not know if we will qualify yet based off the use of our grant funding. And since the project is design-build, a long-term maintenance contract will be required to maintain the chargers once in operation. But overall, CIP number 8902 will help the city surpass the original goal of 20 EV charging stations, which will contribute to our overall GHG emission reduction goals. I'll pass it off to Imelda to talk about Strategy 4.
Yes, Strategy 4. Thank you, Cassidy. Strategy 4 in the CAP update is to increase building energy efficiency and has one measure, E1, which is to implement energy-efficient projects in municipal facilities. The goal of this measure is to complete energy efficiency projects identified in the 2018 audit that will reduce municipal facility energy use by 1 million kilowatt hours by 2030.
Ms. Huerta? I just want to take a quick moment and ask if there are any questions before
sure.
we... Councilmember Green, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if you want us to ask you questions as you go through them, or if you just want us to write all of our questions down and ask you at the end.
We were going to go through them, and then you can ask questions, but
Fantastic.
we're open to whatever the council
I
would
like your plan. It's all good. Thank you so much.
No problem. Yes, so Strategy 4, the goal of this measure is to complete energy efficiency projects identified in the 2018 energy audit that will reduce municipal facility energy by 1 million kilowatt hours by 2030. In September 2021, the City Council directed staff to research a consultant for a citywide lighting assessment, and on July 19th of last year, staff issued a request for proposals for lighting assessment services. The city is currently undertaking the street lighting assessment as part of ongoing commitment to enhancing public safety. As of today, there are approximately a little over 140 locations in Vista that have been identified for installing new streetlights or upgrading existing fixtures. And I want to note that all current city-owned fixtures are LED. 3 phases of this project have been completed, and phase 4 is currently in process. We put it on hold briefly to request additional feedback from the residents. While the streetlight project was not part of the 2018 energy audit, upgrading these streetlights will help bolster the final goal of reducing municipal facility energy use and costs as well. And then I just want to note the next part of this project is that we are working with the consultant to do some kind of demonstration. We'll pick a residential street that may have 3 or 4 streetlights that have been identified for replacement, and we'll put different types of fixtures and have residents go by over a period of time and give us input on the lighting and their choice or their feedback on the different options. By the end of this year, the assessment should be completed, and the consultant will provide us with final plans and specs that we'll use for a bid package to select a construction contractor. I do want to just quickly note the different maps. So this first map, which is the townsite area, was phase 1. And it's also quickly want to note that this was an add to packet. We did have to update the labels for the districts, which will come up in just a few slides. The second phase consisted of North Townsite area. The third was Grapevine and Olive area. And then the fourth was a catch-all. It was throughout the different areas in the city, and this is the phase where we've been adding additional feedback that we've been receiving. And I do want to note that the locations were selected based on council feedback, staff feedback, and resident feedback as well, and community feedback. The next maps, which were added to the packet this afternoon, show the different districts. As you can see in this area, in the town site area, it highlights District 1 and 2. Phase 2 highlights District 1 and 2 as well. And then Phase 3 has District 3 highlighted, and Phase 4 is throughout this citywide. Okay, and I will pass it back to Cassidy to talk about Strategy 5E2.
Thank you. So Strategy 5 in the CAP update is to increase renewable and zero carbon energy. Currently, staff has projects that touch on both of these measures under the strategy. The first measure is E2, which is to continue photovoltaic or PV installation at municipal facilities. The goal of this measure is to install 400 kilowatt new behind-the-meter PV at city facilities by 2030. The city has been working on CIP number 8334, the Civic Center solar project, and it is currently in the design phase. The design phase will determine the type and location of these solar panels and the grid connection for them. This project has been funded by the state, and the preliminary design from Baker Electric suggests adding solar carport structures to the Alta Vista parking lot here at the Civic Center. The design shown now is just a preliminary layout, and unfortunately, tree removal will be required, but staff is actually actively trying to remove the least amount of trees as possible. The guaranteed maximum price will go to City Council for approval in March 2024, and the project is expected to be completed by October 2024. With the completion of this project, the preliminary design does suggest that the city will have met this goal for this measure. And I'll pass it back to Imelda.
Thank you. And I do want to quickly note that this weekend, as part of this project, some geotechnical investigation will be taking place and survey work on the Alta Vista and Vistix parking lots. So those parking lots will be closed to the public on Saturday and Sunday. Okay, moving on to the last project, which is Strategy 5, E3. The second measure under Strategy 5 is E3 to join a program to increase grid supply, renewable, and zero carbon electricity. The goal in the CAP update is to achieve 90% renewable or zero carbon electricity by 2030. In June of 2022, City Council agreed to join and participate in the Clean Energy Alliance, which is a community choice aggregation. The CCA offers alternative electric power options to residents and businesses currently served by investor-owned utilities like SDG&E. In November of this year, City Council will have 3 power supply options to choose from as a default product for customers in the city. We will be presenting these options for your consideration, and just a quick reminder that there's not a vote for this tonight. We are just requesting direction to staff. In November, we will bring back a formal resolution for adoption. So the options are Clean Impact, which is 50% renewable energy, Clean Impact Plus, which is 50% renewable and 75 carbon-free energy, and Green Impact, which is 100% renewable energy. It should be noted that all members of the CCA, which is the City of Escondido, San Marcos, Carlsbad, Del Mar, and Solana Beach, have all chosen the middle option, Clean Impact Plus, as their default, and it is anticipated that the City of Oceanside will also choose that option at their November meeting. Okay, as you can tell from the examples given, the Clean Impact option is the most economical, while the Green Impact, Clean Impact, yes, while the Green Impact option is the most expensive option. If the city, whatever a choice the city decides to to choose as a default, the city customers will still have the option to opt up or down to the option that works best for them at any time of the program. In addition, staff would like to note that the bill comparisons shown can be helpful, but they are based on both CEA and SDG&E rates effective as of February 1st, 2023. The CEA expects that SDG&E rates will change in January, and the CEA will continue to participate in SDG&E's rate-setting process to ensure that the CEA rates are competitive and their customers are not put at a disadvantage over non-CEA customers. So this first slide here does show a comparison or some for residential customers. The next slide shows current rates for small commercial customers. I did want to quickly note that the exit fees or power charge indifference adjustments, which is a PCIA fees shown. These are fees charged by SDG&E to customers enrolled with CEA and other CCA providers. Those fees cover losses incurred by SDG&E for ending energy supply contracts for customers that move to another provider. In developing CEA rates, the PCIA fees are accounted for when comparing typical monthly electric utility costs between CEA and SDG&E. The PCIA is not a new fee, but is broken out separately on the bill for CEA customers. So this fee is charged to customers as a charge per kilowatt hour consumed and is based on when the customer leaves SDG&E's generation services. The exit fee is set annually through SDG&E Energy Resource Recovery Account rate setting process. So agencies that join CEA at different times will have different PCIA rates. Therefore, we can expect to have different rates than the current cities that are part of the CEA. Okay, and I'll pass it back to Cassidy for a grant update.
Thank you. Oh, geez, back. Thank you, Imelda. So since July of 2022, the city has been awarded several grants that have cap-related goals associated with their outcomes. Currently, the grants that we have include the grant for the Vista Transit Center grade separation, which ties to Strategy 2, adding solar panels to Fire Station 3 and creating a solar app, which tie to Strategy 5, and adding a tree canopy and irrigation along the North Santa Fe corridor, which does tie to Strategy 7 in the CAP update. And with that, we thank you for your time, and we're here to help answer any questions. We also do have Barbara Boswell with the CEA listening in via Zoom, who can answer questions regarding the Joint Power Authority. And also we have our street lighting consultant, STC, if there's any questions about the street lighting project.
Thank you very much, and we do have some public comments, so we'll take the public comments now unless there's any questions before we do that. We'll begin with Joe Hood. If you would, please, when you hear your name called, come and take a seat in the front row and be ready to speak, followed by Sid Rothenberg and Ann Force.
I'd like to offer some possible specific and measurable goals with target completion dates. 1, set a net zero goal. Review the city's Scope 3 emissions as described in SB 253 from Sacramento. Set a policy to divest any investments that support fossil fuel and companies. Ensure retirement plans for employees have options that do not invest in fossil fuel companies. Seek net zero suppliers. 2, work with other governments in the county to open a public bank. Earnings from the public bank should go back to fund ecological and equity-focused projects. 3, deploy microgrids at all 45 city buildings, plus all parking lots. Poway just saved $33 million. I'll bet we can beat it. Without cost up front, by the way, with a PPA. 4, partner with the Unified School District to set up school buildings as community resilience centers. We all know crisis is coming, whether it's an earthquake, a fire, heat. Many, especially poor and elderly, don't have AC. Let's prepare. 5, plant mini forests around the city for cooling, CO2 sequestration, and increased biodiversity. Include plants for pollinators and milkweed for monarchs, etc. 6, prepare a citywide tree plan. Apply for a meaningful tree grant. 7, define reach codes for to electrify buildings and retrofits, set pathways to retrofit our existing building stock. 8, strengthen single-use plastic bans, enforce the current ban, which is not being done, ban artificial turf. 9, stop using harmful pesticides and chemicals. 10, prepare a zero waste plan. 11, set water targets for reducing cosmetic lawn watering and placing swales to capture rain, improve groundwater storage, and reduce runoff into the ocean. 12, monitor and report air quality 13, reduce VMT, encourage public transit. 14, increase mixed-use neighborhoods and work towards 15-minute communities. And last, install a community environmental dashboard with displays around the city to increase awareness and citizen participation. I could go on, but I know time is up. We have much to do. Please, please. Cassidy, welcome. Let's go do it together.
Sid Rothenberg, followed by Ann Force, followed by Nancy Oshley.
Well, I support a lot of, Mr. Mayor and council members, good evening. I support a lot of what Joe Wooten was suggesting in terms of all the adding the greens and the trees and what have you. And we know that the emphasis of this event has to do with greenhouse gases. And the biggest offender is carbon dioxide, which is produced by cars and mechanical vehicles. So I know that we're having a push on everything being electric, EVs, kitchen appliances, and heating. And Vista is trying to move away from the fossil fuels, which is commendable, and we need to keep doing that for future generations. So I applaud City of Vista in the examination of their contribution to this problem and ways to make changes to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. The city will do well to keep moving forward in this direction, including, though, our issues of water and soil, not just the air. And there are other forms of pollutants that are gravely affect human health, which I would like to present, although this is geared toward the air pollution. And they also need to be addressed by the cities that are expanding, and they need to be given as much, if not more, attention as the greenhouse gases and the water and soil pollutants. And they include noise generated by cars alone, noise that echoes off the multi-story buildings by cars, trains, and siren sounds. The high pitch and volume results in hearing loss in young children. It also agitates our mental well-being. Light is another pollutant. The level of brightness also affects our mental health and sleep patterns. And we do know that the blue light that comes from the computer and some LED lights overstimulates the brain and interrupts our sleep patterns. Lastly, I'd like to mention thermal. So all of these things increase the heat that's generated in the environment. And the heat is by the traffic and the closeness of which multi-level buildings are built, and how the sun's rays and the heat bounces off these buildings and off of the pavement, generates more heat. The air conditioners are spewing out the heat into the environment. And so we do know, as Joe was saying, that the trees are going to help ameliorate some of that issue. So in the future, as the county's looking forward and they're planning for high density, I hope some consideration will also be given to these other pollutants that affect the human body gravely. Thank you.
Ann Force, followed by Nancy Oshley, followed by Lynn Miskey.
Hi, I'm Ann Force. I'm a resident of District 2. And thank you so much for this comprehensive list of accomplishments in moving toward the Climate Action Plan goals. It is great to know that grants were received for the Civic Center solar shade structures. Also, I'm very happy about the green paint for the bicycle lanes. I can definitely see them more readily when driving. Also, a cyclist can immediately see gravel and other impediments to avoid. I support applying for a grant from the EPA to upgrade the existing Climate Action Plan and to add measurable goals for community education regularly scheduled to address waste disposal do's and don'ts, wastewater sequestration, recycling, and rebuilding aquifers, using native plants, not just drought-tolerant plants, to support local native fauna, and for community gardens, increasing the number of community gardens will impact our healthy Vista education goals, and especially food resiliency. And 5, including in the CEA section, a goal towards identifying and monitoring microgrids throughout the city, because transmitting even clean energy over long distances could be avoided. You lose 30% in the transmission. I also support a community education grant towards planning an environmental dashboard, which Joe mentioned. And Vista has interactive websites such as SeeClickFix. I even find out if a neighbor has reported a problem. And so I can go check it out. And then also the General Plan 2050, that's like an interactive website too. So anyway, the dashboard would have access points throughout our city to increase public awareness, increase feedback and ideas from residents, and increase active enthusiasm for climate goals. The material on the website is interactive, giving and receiving information. According to Professor Johnny Peterson of Community Hub, psychology and marketing research teaches us that perceptions of what other community members are doing are among the most powerful factors motivating individual decision-making. And thank you again.
Thank you. Nancy Oshley, followed by Lynn Mitschke, followed by Janice Jones. If you would, come on down and be ready to speak when it's your turn.
Good evening, council members. My name is Nancy Oshley, and I have a theme to my comments tonight. The theme is set the example. And I'm really happy to see that we're going to be voting next month on how to join up as an entity for Clean Energy Alliance. I don't know if you realize this, but it was way back in June 28th of 2022 that this council decided to join CEA. And during that discussion, even then, although it wasn't part of the motion, and I could have sworn it was, but there was lots of discussion about joining at 100% so that we'd be the example. And I'm pretty sure fall of 22, there was a motion like that, but I couldn't find it. It's really hard to find, minutes and all that. They're right there, and I read through all of them, but I didn't see it. And I'm pretty sure it didn't happen in my imagination, but I'm pretty sure that in September, October of last year, there was a big discussion about wanting to also join at 100% clean energy. So set the example, join at 100%, and advertise it. The other item that I would like us to set the example is our waste. I had a big event, well, big for me, 50 people in my backyard for a wedding, and I set up 2 big trash cans, one that was labeled compostable, the other one recyclables, and then my teeny tiny kitchen trash can was trash. And with the caterer, I said, I'm gonna provide the plates and the utensils, and so it was all bamboo, paper plates, really nice. But guess what? On Monday, which is my trash day, I didn't have to take out my trash can. This is for an event with 50 people at my house, and cleanup was awesome. So anyway, I really would like to see the city, whenever you have any kind of event especially where food is involved, that's set up so that people know that, hey, you know what? This little box from Panera that I just had my sandwich in, the wrapper, box, it can all go into the compost bin. Pizza boxes can go in the compost bin. A lot of people don't realize that. I'm telling my friends all the time when they have pizza, I'm like, that can go in your compost bin. They're like, what? Those chicken bones, those can go in your compost bin. So you can tell I'm kind of excited about composting. So anyway, spread the word and set the example. So that's all I have to say. Oh, and also I do like the idea of the dashboard that everybody's talking about, and they're having that event next week, I think it is. So maybe staff should try and watch it. So thank you so much.
Lynn Mitschke, followed by Janice Jones, followed by Rebecca Medici.
Hello, I'd like to be over here. Oh, sorry. So I'd like to just give my appreciation to staff and council for persevering with this climate action plan and for hiring a new CAP administrator. That's really wonderful.
And I really look forward to working with you, all of us do, I think, to bring these ordinances and the next steps. I really appreciated the stakeholder meetings that we had for the last review. And I think they were really valuable, and I hope that we'll continue to have those on an ongoing basis to just get everybody's input. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is that I hope that our CAP has a real equity focus because some people have been more affected by climate change than others, and that we concentrate on some of those things. And also, in terms of our ordinances, I hope that we really focus a lot on compliance, because without that, it's not really worth much. So that does take an extra push, I know, from the city to allocate funds for compliance, for people to really follow up. And so that's something that's really important to me. And thanks very much again.
Janice Jones, followed by Rebecca Medici, followed by Mary Gilman.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Welcome to your new role and to your new position with the city. Very excited for both of you and for us for having you. And thank you for the presentation. Happy to see the progress that's being made on the CAP. And I do have a few recommendations, of course. For strategy 1, regarding the electric car chargers, I bought an electric car for the first time in 2017, and there were very few chargers in town, no fast chargers. I'd had to drive to Carlsbad to get to a fast charger when I needed to charge up my car quickly. So with those chargers that are going to be installed on city property, I would hope that some of those would be level 3 chargers. It's critical to be able to charge quickly at certain times, probably for staff and for residents. For strategy 4, I'm pleased about the plan for improving streetlights. That's key for public safety. I'm also concerned about light pollution, and I'm glad to hear that there's going to be kind of a pilot program with the lights, and I hope that the consultants who are doing that work keep in mind light pollution mitigation. I know there are things they can do with the light fixtures to reduce the light being exposed in areas where it shouldn't be. And then for strategy 5, I'm super excited that I'll be able to join CEA at 100%. Like Nancy said, I encourage the city to also join at 100%. And then regardless of what option you choose for residents, I hope that there'll be education and outreach and encouragement to people to join at 100% if they can. So the one issue that wasn't addressed tonight is the waste part of the plan. I can't remember what number that is, but everyone knows that's my passion area. And frankly, the CAP as it's written is very weak with inorganic and organic waste strategies. And so one way to remedy that would be to develop a separate zero waste plan. In Carlsbad, it's a sustainable materials implementation plan, I believe. Either would be a great model for the city to follow. And then as others have expressed, and as I've expressed to some of you already, I'm really disappointed in the compliance with the single-use plastic reduction plan. Every time I go out around town, I see styrofoam containers spilling out of trash bins. I see Panda Express containers around the creek area when I walk my dog over there. So I think there's a lot that we could do to improve compliance, including education, and I'm happy to help.
Rebecca Medici, followed by Mary Gilman, followed by Zach James.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Medici. I live in District 3 here in Vista. I really like to welcome you. I'm very excited that we have you now and that we're going to have an environmental commission. So that's very exciting. And I agree with most everything people have already said. I wanted to just emphasize a few things, like to put solar panels in every possible city property, including on all the parking lots. I mean, I feel bad to hear that some trees will have to be gotten rid of, though, and that's my second concern is the tree canopy. And I know we've already been discussing that, but it's definitely lacking, and we have a grant for some stuff, but I would like to have much larger grants. I know there's stuff available, and it's especially needed in the underserved areas, which are hot and not shaded. It will do double duty in both removing carbon from the atmosphere and in cooling those areas, and would be really useful in areas where people wait for public transportation, and which is another thing I would hope that there will be more public transportation here as well. And also we can partner with schools, making pocket parks, for trees and such. And the other thing that I just thought of is, so I live in a condominium and I would like to have composting there, and I don't know that that's available to us. So I would like to look into that too. So thank you very much.
Mary Gilman, followed by Zach James.
Good evening. Thank you for having this update. I remember going to the earlier meetings back, I guess it was in 2021, about what the goals are. And so I am glad to see progress on some of the items. And I'd really like to see that spreadsheet of all the items that are coming up, because couldn't read that. So I don't know if that's on the website available or whatever. Okay. So what I would like to say is that a few of the measures that were in the original Climate Action Plan that I'm most concerned about is the transportation and land use measures. And of course, you are addressing some of that. But on the one about decreasing vehicle miles traveled, and of course, this would reduce the air pollution. It would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by having less traffic and less travel, and relieve the traffic congestion. Of course, that's one of my issues or concerned, and being on the board of GARD-Guajome Alliance for Responsible Development, but also being a concerned citizen of this community. And so item T4 was for smart growth. So smart growth implies not developing in the areas that are either considered rural or semi-rural or open space. And so I have to express my disappointment in the last couple big developments, big for our area, I would say, Vista Grande Drive and Camino Lago, both of which were approved. And those are smack in this semi-rural, agricultural area. So anyways, that went against the plan, and also for the plan, for the climate plan, but also for the development plan, or the general plan, I should say. So anyways, and the idea, and I don't have to read to you, but the measure T4 for the smart growth implies not building where there are these open spaces and try to preserve the habitat. So in addition to that, moving on, Measure A4 is about biodiversity and habitats. Again, let's try to preserve the open spaces. And then E5 is about preserving and saving trees and such, which of course absorb carbon dioxide and, are good and healthy for our environment and for us to breathe. So thank you. Thank you for letting me speak.
Zach James.
To what extent is the EV program going to be centered around bidirectional or otherwise known as vehicle-to-grid technology? I ask this because the company with the most vehicle-to-grid patents in the world is based in San Diego. Furthermore, that company, I'm not going to name it, they partner with SDG&E already, so they provide us, to a certain extent, some of the power we're using today. The state of California as a whole uses this company for its emergency load reduction program. So is this going to be an extension of the program, or is it like ancillary, I would say? Second, the 47 new vehicles, are they going to be school buses, or are they some mix of city service vehicles like regular public transportation buses? Is it like some program with the post office? As far as the carbon capture stuff, I feel like we're missing the mark and the point entirely. Trees are not the end-all, be-all biological fix to carbon capture programs. The best way is perennial grasses. When you consider that trees can be felled for developing high-density units, or that they can burn in a place that has a long history of forest fires, that carbon is put back out, whereas grasses stick it right into the soil, which we're going to compact for the high-density units, and it's going to stay down there till we're all gone, and then new children are born. Or we're going to bring it back out with non-regenerative farming, which we should be addressing in the CAP altogether. We have a slew of nurseries in the area, and we could force them to practice regenerative farming if they're going to expect to be selling their products to our people. It's something we need to address because the science is extremely clear. Everybody can pull out their phone here and look up carbon capture, grass versus trees, and there's not a link that will say trees are better, yet we're spending $100 million as a city, like San Diego, all of it, on something that's going to only last for so long. It can only fix so much. And as far as the green waste stuff, there's a company called AgriService in Oceanside. What they do is they pick up the green waste bins and they turn everything into mulch for the city of Oceanside. We should do the same, contract them or compel a business to do the same thing because they're incomparable. Their only competition is a company out in Denmark or Holland, I believe. They are innovative. Thanks.
Okay, at this time, we'll close the opportunity for public comment. We'll go to questions and comments from the council. Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. First of all, welcome Cassidy McCarthy, and thank you so much for your amazing presentation. You did great. I know sitting down here looking at us talking heads, as we call ourselves, is rough, so did a really good job with that. I did have some questions, and I just kind of wrote them down as we went. So first thing was about the 65 EVs that we're purchasing. I was looking at, I'm sorry, the 65 EVs, 65 chargers. It said 12 to 18-month lead time. Does that mean it's going to be done in 12 to 18 months, or that's when you're going to like break ground?
So I know, I believe Matt Atterbury here is from engineering.
Okay.
May be able to clarify the time frame.
Yeah, no, and I was reading it in the agenda report on page 3. It said it had a potential 12 to 18-month lead time, and the staff had walked all the sites. So I was kind of trying to figure out, you know where they're going to go. We did the design build. What's the time frame actually on it?
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
The 12 to 18-month lead time is for SDG&E for the permit process.
Okay. So by 18 months, we assume that we'll have them all permitted?
Yes, from when we submit the application. That's correct.
Okay. Are you the lead on the electronic vehicle charger item here?
I'm not the lead tonight, but for this project, but I'm here to see what I can do. So.
Okay, no problem. The other questions I had about it had to do with the private ownership and the maintenance of it. I noticed that on page 3 and 4 of the agenda report, and I think it was page like 6 of your presentation, where you outlined how many chargers you were going to have at each location, and you're going to have them at the park, the Civic Center, the Wave Water Park. There's different types, it says, chargers, like municipal, which I'm assuming is the location, a park, public parking, and then you kind of even dug down deeper where you talked about whether they were type 2 or type 3 chargers. My question has to do with private ownership. How do we determine, it's like winning the lottery, somebody gets 65 new electronic vehicle chargers, and do we send it out for RFP for one company to manage? Does it go to a bunch of, do we break it down into different companies to install, or how does that work?
Yeah, for the installation, it'll be a public bid.
Okay.
But as far as the maintenance goes, that will also be a bid as well.
So it's two separate companies?
It'll be two separate companies.
One to install and one to maintain. And then will we get to actually see the actual design build before it's like put out to RFP, I guess, as a council to say, hey, these are the type of, because I saw you have it broken down where we only have 2 level 3 chargers. And I know one of the speakers mentioned the difference between a quick charger and like a trickle charger. And there's currently chargers in downtown Vista by Belching Beaver that take forever to charge your car, as opposed to the, fast chargers, which are level 3. We only have 2 right here that I see, but I see 10 of those are level 3 chargers. Is that what it is at the Civic Center?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Yeah, so there's 3 different levels. Level 1 is basically if you're to plug it into an outlet, it's very slow.
Yeah.
Level 2 is a little bit faster.
Similar to like a 220 outlet or something, maybe 30 miles to the hour or something like that?
Something like that. And
Okay.
then level 3 is like your Tesla superchargers.
Okay. And out of all of the ones that we're putting in, it looks like, what is that, 35 out of the 67 are going to have the ability to be quick chargers? I looked at it right here. Shadow Ridge
Yeah.
Park, or Public Works, looks like it has 20. Civic Center has 10. And then we have another 5 there in downtown. Is that correct?
Let me clarify that those facilities are looking at both level 2 and 3 chargers at this point.
Okay.
If the council's desire is to add more level 3 chargers, we can certainly do that.
It said all of these are available to the public. So like the Public Works yard, I was a little, is that true?
So we will have, this is the undeveloped yard at this point.
Okay.
So we'll be able to have parking for fleet vehicles, and then we'll have a separate parking area for the public.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And I think from a electronic vehicle standpoint, that might be one of the only questions aside from the vehicle to grid question. I don't even know what that is, Zach. I think you mentioned vehicle to grid. Do we have any, I don't know what that is. Anybody have any insight to that? Maybe my smart counsel can, no? Okay. So I don't know, with all of these vehicles that we have, is there a plan for that, or is that something new?
We're going to have to research that.
Okay, cool.
Get back to you.
Thank you. I wrote down a lot of words that I didn't understand. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, now I wanted to talk about the lighting real quick. Thank you so much, number one, for the lighting, and thank you so much, Mr. Atterbury. You might want to stay here just in case anybody else has the questions there. I love the lighting on Rush Road right there behind Vista High School. It's real dark. There is a lot of lighting in that residential area over there off of like Goodwin and things. Are we notifying residents before we put the lights in, or have they already been notified, or?
No, so that is our plan to notify, and that's also part of the process why we want to do a demonstration. We'll pick a street where we can have residents go by and give us input before we input the
perfect.
lights.
Okay.
Yes, and so part of the final package that STC will submit to us is their recommendations, what type of lighting, if we need a new pole in certain areas. So that'll be later by the end of this year.
Okay, and I looked at the agenda report more than your thing, so I wrote down just some things on the agenda report. I want to say that it was like page 11 through 13 on the agenda report where they were at, and one area that caught my eye a lot was that Santa Clara area, Santa Barbara area. It looks like you're putting a lot of lights on existing poles, because I'm sure that the power still ran overhead there, and the area is extremely dark. Again, I just want to make sure that it's a lot of lights.
And some of these are repairs, some of these are replacements, some of these are noting that there's no pole there and we need some. But as part of the assessment, the recommendation will include whether we need more lights or maybe not so much.
And the actual agenda
less.
report was very informative, and it talked about, hey, this is going to be a new light, this is going to be an upgraded light, this is going to be a light going on a different pole. Right. And, like I say, if anybody wants to look, pages, 11 through, 15 or so of the agenda report have the entire kind of map of where it's going to be. So that was great. And I actually had a friend who lived on Salina Court. I sent a video to our city manager that was pitch black dark in the middle of the night. And I was like, yeah, this is probably not a good area. So that was good there. One thing I wanted to mention, I heard a couple people talk about the community education on organic waste recycling. And first thing I was elected to do in 2016 was SB 1383. And as you know, that was passed in 2016. I sit as the treasurer of the Regional Solid Waste Association. We're currently working with the Solana Center. You guys may be familiar with the Solana Center. A lady named Jessica Toth runs the Solana Center. And we've also been allocating funds to the municipalities within our JPA to make sure we're in compliance with SB 1383. Everybody can receive free kitchen caddies from EDCO. So if anybody doesn't have a kitchen caddy sitting right next to their stove at home, all of your organic waste can go in there and be put in your compost or recycling bin. At our next meeting on Tuesday, we just received the update at the RISWA meeting where we're at with compliance and what our next steps are. So at our council meeting on Tuesday, I'll be giving that update with a slideshow. I'll make sure that it's public record so that you guys can see exactly where we are with SB 1383. The anaerobic digester that we have built in Escondido, which we all allocated funding for in 2016, was actually designed by the original model out in Denmark. So they are well ahead of us, from a recycling standpoint. And we did glean a lot off of the European, recycling programs out there. The capacity for the organic waste recycling is going to be doubling with the additional construction of another anaerobic digester. And EDCO is actually powering, I want to say 100% of their fleet from the renewable natural gas that they're getting from the anaerobic digester and actually pumping renewable natural gas back into the system for SDG&E. So what you guys are doing as residents to date is definitely working, but continue to do it because we have a really large capacity for organic waste recycling. And becoming a net zero community and a net zero city was kind of the goal of all of this is, hey, how can we get there? And RISWA was one of the first organizations to have an anaerobic digester. So we actually have other waste haulers who are paying us to use ours. So from Vista, when it comes to the organic waste recycling, I assume since it's kind of complied in a different entity, that's why it might not be here, but we'll make sure the slideshow's there, and then maybe we can also add all the data that we get from the Solana Center. I know we also contract with them as a staff, just to give the community kind of the updates of what we're doing. We've identified all tier 1 and tier 2 producers. We all know that the top of the food, the hierarchy is food recovery, actually, and not necessarily recycling. So we're trying to figure out how to get all that food that's just being thrown away in the hands of hungry people. And our next report that's going to be coming out talks about the hundreds and thousands of tons of capacity we have to actually recover food as opposed to just recycle it. So that's the one part of the cap that I'm on top of is the organic waste recycling. I say I am the trash guy and I am the Encina waste guy. So the two dirty things I like to dig deep into there. So I want to make sure that that was known that we are working on that. Last thing was my CEA questions, and I just wanted to go off of your slides right here. I know that we joined the CEA. I know Councilmember Melendez is our representative, and she's been great with giving us updates on the CEA. For the community looking at it right here, you gave us two different presentations. One of them had to do, or two different charts. One of them had to do with residential. One of them had to do with commercial. Mm-hmm. I know that as a council, we did vote in public that we want to start at 100% clean energy. Even though it's a little more expensive, we do want to be the example. I think that's kind of what we voted, as a council. But giving our consumers the choice of either 50%, 75%, or 100%. So is it safe to say that if they choose 50% renewable energy as their consumer choice, they're saving money off of their current bill based off of these charts?
Based off of that chart, yes, and there are different savings. So
of course.
Yes, if it's, for example, if it's 50%, it's you can see at the bottom percentage savings to SDG&E total bill compared to the 75% and 100%.
Yeah, yes. And I just wanted to highlight it because I think there's, the fear of the unknown is always scary for everybody. And when you look at the data and you can see that we're basically the same type of financial cost, but the ability to kind of choose what your impact can be on the environment. As a municipality, we have a bigger, reserve, I would assume, than a standard, citizen. So that's why, we want to set the example that financially we think it's more, feasible to go with 100%. But it's not that big of a difference, from your monthly cost, and you can actually save money, right?
Yes, and these are based on current rates, and as mentioned in the report, those rates can change. We don't have the new rates from SDG&E yet. That's expected maybe the end of this year or January. So that could change. It could change. And we do have Barbara from CEA on Zoom. I'm not sure if she wanted to add anything or if you want to hear from her or ask any questions.
I'm going to defer to Councilmember Melendez when she gets to this a little bit more. She should know about the vintage pricing rates and all the changes and stuff. But I really appreciate the information, and I think getting the data in front of the public is the most important thing there. Somebody also mentioned microgrids, and I'm either expecting my council to educate me tonight or just learn more about the process. So I really appreciate everybody who this is their wheelhouse, working on this climate action plan. I see a lot of familiar faces who've been working on this for a lot of years, 7 years that I've been here, pounding on the city, and I'm sure well before that. So thank you, community, for your work. Thank you for speaking. And thank you, staff. And again, thank you, Cassidy. Good touch wearing the green shirt for your green climate action plan thing. Appreciate you both, and thank you, Imelda.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just also wanted to mention, I also have the little 1 gallon bucket from EDCO, and Allie and I fill it up every single week. We get about a gallon worth of stuff. But I think one of the things that we need to do specific to that is work with EDCO so we can educate our community. I'm old enough to remember having an orange, a blue, and a green recycling bin growing up, and now you can just throw it all into one bin. So the more that we can educate our residents and let them know that this is available to them and that EDCO does come around and pick it up, I think the more it can actually get people involved in that, in recycling their food. So I think that would be fantastic. But they do a really great job. I think it's, 500 tons per anaerobic digester. So they do fantastic work with that. And all of the mulch that they create from that actually goes back out into our farming communities. So they have high fertilizer for them. So I did have a couple questions for you, though. So when we're talking about the fleet vehicles, does that include like the fire trucks and the ambulances and all the other things that need to be brought online?
No. So specific in the CAP, it lists the CAP update is only for passenger vehicles and small light duty trucks.
And so by 2030, would we have to have those included in our upgrades for EVs?
So it's not included in the current cap. I don't.
So I'm jumping in
Yeah,
here.
go ahead, City Manager.
We are
Yes.
updating our general plan, and we are going to have to update the cap as part of that process. So we will be evaluating that as part of the cap update.
Okay, and the only reason why I bring that up is because right now to even get a fleet truck takes about a year to build. The average cost for an electric firefighter or for an electric fire truck is about 1.6 to 1.8 million. So the sooner we can have that information and actually allocate funding for it, I think would be better. Otherwise, we're going to end up spending more in the future, which I don't think any of us up here want to do. That also brings up the point, are we going to be retrofitting any of our fire stations for, or was that going to be something that has to be amended as well, but are we going to retrofit our fire stations for electric fire trucks and ambulances for that matter?
So as part of the construction of Fire Station number 3, which is our only brand new station that we're building right now, we are not planning on retrofitting it for electric vehicles. If in our next cap, we decide on a goal or a measure that will require us to purchase electric fire trucks, then we'll have to include the cost in that measure.
Perfect. And then, it's not the first time, and Mr. Hood, thank you for everybody here, thank you for all the work that you've done, but the 130 trees that we have that we've added to our canopy when there's 36,000 that need to be added for tree equity in Vista, are we actively working on grants or any funding to bring in more?
That is a great question. So our grants writer, Angie, who she may still be here, she forwarded our new CAP manager a lot of grant opportunities, which we are looking through as we speak.
Awesome. If later on I can get an update on that, just so I can.
Yes, perfect. I can definitely
Great.
send you that information.
The lighting assessment, I know that you said we're going to be moving into the final stage. Is that going to be ongoing at any point so we can address any other issues throughout the city or other communities that may not have been included in this assessment?
So we did send out via our Vista News Center at the end of September. We sent it out to everyone, e-blast, and we to capture any additional feedback or recommendations that communities may have. I know STC is trying to wrap this up. If there are still some lingering areas, feel free to send them to me, sooner the better. We are hoping to complete the assessment by the end of the year. But if there's something that you notice or something notice, feel free to send it over, and yeah, we can work on that.
Awesome. And the only other thing I would really be supportive of, I would love to see solar on every single government building or adding a parking lot with solar on it here throughout the city. Capturing water, I know that we actually had this conversation the other day, and the fact that not just Vista, but the state of California is awful at capturing water, and you'd figure after all the droughts that we've had, we'd be a little bit better at it. But that is something that if we can do, I think would be huge, huge improvement and really lead the way for other cities to follow. And then beyond that, for the CCA, to the point that was already made, you know, the knowledge that isn't there is what is scary to most people. And so making sure that our residents are fully aware of their options, either to opt in or opt out, and to make sure that they're aware of the plans that we have, I think is going to be crucial to making sure that it's successful and people know what it is. So I would really, really strongly encourage that, and anything I can do to help with that, I'm happy to do so. And for right now, I'm sure I'll have more questions shortly, but for right now, that's all I have.
No problem. Thank you. If I may add, we will be working closely with CEA and community outreach before the official rollout of the program.
Thank you so much for this update. I just have a question, because we're not reviewing all of our CAP. We're only reviewing certain sections. So when are we going to review the remaining sections?
The purpose of the meeting tonight was to just give you some insight on the things that we're actively working on. The ones that we're not reviewing are things that we don't have active projects undergoing right now. The bike lanes we've painted, and we are doing the separated lanes, but beyond that, we haven't built new bike facilities. As an example, what we wanted to do was try to touch on the active projects, but we're certainly here to hear council's direction on other goals that you'd like to accomplish, and we can respond back on timing to get that done.
Okay. So I think you said something really important, that it's needs to be highlighted again for the public, that because we are updating our general plan, we have to update our CAP. And that's something that you see in cities across the region, right? That they're having to, like City of Oceanside, having to update their general plan. And that means that maybe they need to have a CAP now, right? To mitigate for more development. But I would really, really, and I hope that I have the support of the council, those workshops that we conducted for the public were incredible workshops. And we are coming up to really important targets that the state has for greenhouse gas reduction, and just things that we need to do in our community to make it, you know, the climate crisis is a public health crisis. It's getting hotter. And, you know, that's why a lot of folks are focusing on trees and whatnot. But I think we just need to have a more comprehensive update to our climate action plan. I don't feel like this workshop is going to get us to the point that we need to be at. So I really would look forward to having a longer set of workshops, so that way we can go through all of our different strategies. And we definitely need to have a more robust climate action plan, especially if we want to mitigate for more growth, right? If we want to add more development, we need to be able to have a better climate action plan that reduces greenhouse gas emissions and allows for more development. And I think all of us, you know, we have spoken for, you know, different topics when it comes to housing. You know, we really want to see a lot more housing, affordable housing, but we're not going to be able to get to that goal either if we can't justify it with reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And our climate action plan at this point is only a little bit better than business as usual. So what I'm really concerned about is looking at some of the longer term goals that the state has in different state mandates. Of course, these are unfunded. It'd be great, you know, if we had more money, but we do have the ability to apply for grants. And there's never been more funding available at the federal and state level than there is now. So now is the time to really be bold because, listen, I love using other people's money to do our projects. The solar panels, like half of those are other people's money, you know? Or you can look at it as finally a return of our taxpayer dollars back to our communities that's going to have a high return on investment. So I just want to say, as much as I appreciate this workshop, it is not going to get us to the point that we need to get to. So I do want to see us do more. I echo, what Councilmember Green said about us being a corporate citizen taking the lead and having 100% renewable energy. That to me is a must. Just like I thought, it was really important for us to take the lead on single-use plastics, but here we still have water bottles, which I never use. I lug around this really heavy thing, and then luckily today I had some electrolytes. So, because I walked from the Civic Center Sprinter station on my trip back from San Diego, and walking from there to here isn't so bad on a shady day, on a cloudy day, but today was a day with a lot of sun, and there are very few trees on that corridor. So, this goal that we have of 100 trees per year is just not going to be enough. And I know that we're not focusing on that right now, but the things that we're focusing on, I think that they're great. Transitioning our fleet is great. But what is even better is if we can connect our communities in a different way. And I thought it was curious that we also didn't have with this packet for our workshop today, the actual climate action plan attached to it as part of the staff report. So I pulled it up, and I just want to ask, for the city of Vista, what is the #1 sector for greenhouse gas emissions?
I believe it's transportation.
I believe it is too, yeah. And consistently, it continues to go up. And, we can electrify or have all the ambulances and fire trucks, and our whole fleet can be electrified. But at the same time, that's not going to get us to where we need to go if we're not creating a multimodal type of connectivity, meaning that, and we have taken steps outside of our climate action plan to connect folks biking and walking and rolling and, taking a look at how the city can enhance our public transit areas because we, when it comes to bus shelters, that's something that's kind of like a joint effort with NCTD, but it's easier if the city does it than NCTD, and it comes with a cost. But we need to really start looking at transportation. Not only is it the #1 emitter of greenhouse gases, but it also is just incredible when it comes to air pollution, right? Being able to reduce the amount of air pollution. And it would be really interesting to see, where in our community, because we did struggle previously on trying to get to good verbiage for equity in our climate action plan. And when I see, these EV charging stations, there's 6 of them that are going to be 6 charging station parking, however you want to say it. There's 6 of them in my district. I'm not sure, I'm looking at the addresses here, and I don't really see more than 6 in my district. So seeing as how District 1 is incredibly dense and continues to grow with density, this is a real problem for me. And if we're not doing a level 3 charging, I just don't see where the equity comes in, So I want us to do better than where we're at. And I just don't think 6 is going to be enough for my district. it's a good start. I'm not complaining about a good start, but it's where we need to finish, and we're not going to get to the end goal. Anyways, so yes, I just implore us to please, we need to have another workshop. We need to have multiple workshops. We need to have those hands-on workshops where people were able to vote. And I think the top 3 back in the day were folks wanted to see a CAP coordinator. They wanted 100% renewable energy, and they wanted tree canopy. But the 100 trees a year is just not going to cut it for a tree canopy. And what I would like to see too is not only, our strategies and our goals, but a kind of dashboard that I think the public is talking about, where we can see, okay, we have a goal for, X, Y, and Z, right? Whether it's EV charging stations or, reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the transportation sector or tree planting. How far are we along on that goal, right? I think that's like a dashboard that we can take a look at creating. And it's a great public-facing tool that empowers the entire community to be able to participate in government, just by looking at the dashboard and saying, hey, you know what? I think we could do better here, or I want to, volunteer my expertise to help us get, to this. It's like gamifying the CAP, which is, I think that's a great idea. I want to talk a little bit about the solar panels here at the Civic Center. I'm super excited for that. That's going to be great. I am sad about the tree removal. So, this might not be popular, but I have to put it out there. I think it would be great if in front of the Civic Center, right now we have trees and we have roses, but no one can sit. I think it would be great to have a pocket forest there, a mini forest, and you move over, right, the amount of trees that we probably can't dig them out and replant them, but we could have a net zero loss. But it might mean that we have to redesign our Civic Center, which, I don't know.
So we were planning on bringing the tree replacement back as part of the project. The evaluation we did shows that we can't get the power needs that we have for this facility by putting them on the roof or anywhere else on the property other than a large open area like the parking lot. So in order to get the power that we need for the Civic Center, we need to use a parking lot or an area outside the roof of the building. We can absolutely plant more trees on the site to replace the ones even at a higher ratio than we're taking out. There's plenty of places for that. We can bring that back as part of that report.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. And, it's going to be fantastic because I think by doing the parking lot, what does that do? Generate like 87% of the necessary power that we use in a year?
That's exactly the number, I believe, that we got from the consultant.
Okay. Yeah, and it gets a return on investment. I'm just trying to remember. I think it was like 5.5 years or something.
That's correct.
Was I right on that one too?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes I'm right, so that's pretty fun. So anyways, I just wanted to throw that food for thought. As much as I love the roses, this is a civic center, and the back of our civic center feels like a civic center. The front of the civic center feels like you're not encouraged to be in it. So anyways, I wanted to throw that out there. I do have a question, and maybe Barbara at CEA can help with this one, but I did hear from a few folks, and this was through San Diego Community Power, so not through CEA, but folks that qualify for care credit, so reduced energy rate. How are they going to continue getting that care credit rate per kilowatt hour? Do we know that that's something that is going to get worked out, or can we find out about that on the CEA side?
Can we get Barbara on?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Good evening. Mayor and City Council. It's my pleasure to be here and answer your questions. The CARE discount that customers receive is provided to the customer on the SDG&E side of the bill. So when they join a community choice energy program such as Clean Energy Alliance, there's actually no reduction or change to the discount. The discount continues and it continues at the same amount.
Okay, perfect. And so we shouldn't anticipate to have any issues with folks not receiving what they're entitled to as far as a reduction.
That's correct. And they do not need to reapply or nothing needs to happen. It just will automatically continue.
Okay, and that's because SDG&E is going to continue the billing of it.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate that clarification. When it comes to microgrids, this is something newer that I've been learning about, and I think it's very interesting because you can have, a power purchase agreement where you can actually save money on the amount. So I don't have a lot of information on it, but that is something that, these new type of strategies, I think it would be really important, even the bidirectional EV chargers, right? Being able to use a charged EV to be like the battery for like putting energy back in the grid, right? In case there's an emergency, which would be interesting, right? Especially at our facilities if we are moving towards having fire trucks and ambulances and in our fleet converted over to battery. Just in the case of an emergency, I think that would be interesting. So maybe at the fire stations, where we're looking and at Public Works, taking a look at having some bidirectional EV chargers. I don't know enough about it and enough about microgrids, which is why I really would like to get a little bit more information. And I think the council as a whole could really benefit from getting more education on that. Okay. And thank you to the public. I took notes here. Noise pollution. One of the things that we can do, is come January 1st of next year, and this could be put into the transportation sector, but is really to lower speeds. And lower speeds reduces the amount of noise. So it'd be interesting to see what we could do with noise pollution. I don't really know how that fits, if that 100% fits in the cap or not, but it would be interesting to see if it does. And we reduce, speeds, and then also have targets for multimodal build out of our city. I think that could be really important. A long time ago, I brought forward an item regarding community gardens and biodiversity hotspots. So I definitely would like to see that incorporated in the cap. And I appreciate the public comment on regenerative farming. Perennial grasses and marshes are great at sequestering carbon. I think one of the reasons why folks have been so pushing for trees is because of also the shade factor. So, being able to look at these different ways to sequester carbon is important. Composting, all about that. I would love to see, the Moonlight also have a little bit more facilities for separating waste from recycling, from composting, that kind of stuff, just to make it easier, especially because you're kind of rushing through, trying to make sure that you don't miss any of it on the 15-minute intermission or whatever the case might be. So I think we could use some help there, and also reducing single-use plastics. And we've been doing a great job on our social media lately. I think there's an opportunity to even have education in English and Spanish about how to use the green bin. I think that'd be maybe even Councilmember Green wants to do the the video on it, yeah. And there's so much to say. I mean, even on building electrification, I don't know where that stands with the state. So I think we'll have to get some more information on that, right?
Yes, I believe there is a lawsuit pending on one of the cities who imposed electrification, so we're waiting on the outcome of that.
Okay, and any idea when that's gonna go through the court system?
We don't have any idea at this point.
Okay, so we'll have to wait on that one. And regarding the lights, so we're still gonna have a community workshop on that?
So I've been working we've been talking to the consultant about how to go about it once we get the final assessment done. So we talked about doing, having lighting options out, picking maybe a street, a small residential street with 3 or 4 different light fixtures that need to be replaced, to have them provide feedback on that. But we can definitely also go out to different parts of the communities to do similar types of demonstrations. But we're working that out with our consultant. It will require.
That is the extent of the workshop, right, at this point?
Yes, and what I've heard today is to ensure that we notify the residents or the community before we install those lights, which we can definitely do as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think definitely. So I like the idea of a demonstration.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that it's done throughout the city and not just in one area.
And we did talk about doing one area or possibly doing the different districts. So we saw certain areas where there were a lot of different locations identified. So we can definitely pick about 3 or 4 locations.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be great. Okay, awesome. And I just want to say that I agree with Councilmember O'Donnell regarding solar on all public facilities. And also, we went through a whole list of city-owned parcels and some that were identified as parking. And I think that those definitely need to be brought into the CAP fold so we can look at doing solar. If we're going to have additional parking, let's look at 100% every time that we put a new parking lot. Let's put solar. Let's look at microgrids, at the same time. I think there might be some kind of relationship between those two, right? So maybe we can have microgrid and solar in the same spot. And that's it. I look forward to having a lot more workshops so that we can craft a climate action plan that our council is proud of, that the community's proud of, and that the community has so much. I mean, they had 3 minutes each, and they gave us so much information. So if we gave them 30 minutes to an hour each, we would get so much more back. And it's almost like a bi-directional EV charger right there with the community, So anyways, I look forward to continuing this process and coming out the other end with a really strong climate action plan. Because right now, a lot of our targets are based on state targets and meeting that. And I think we could do better. And I want to see us do better. So thank you.
Councilmember Green asked me to let the students know that they fulfilled their 1 hour.
Yeah, they're in the
And Josh is in the back, and we'll sign your document there. Maybe some of our staff members could assist if they're not already back there.
We appreciate you being here.
I insisted that they were staying to listen to the conversation. Councilmember Green said they might want to go home for dinner. So.
Sorry, thank you.
Councilmember Melendez.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to the students who stayed as long as they did. The future of the planet is yours to have. We just want to make sure that you have a livable planet. I really appreciate all the people who gave public comment. Thank you, Joe, for this great outline of suggestions. I think that there's a lot here that we can implement at low cost to the city, which is really important. I'm going to go through kind of what was in the presentation, provide feedback and questions, and then also give some things that I might think would be good to add. First, I want to just touch base with our city manager and get a little bit more information as to why certain strategies have not had any action taken on them. Was it a matter of financing, staff time? What were the reasons for that?
Really both. So Cassidy just started this month. We had a gap for about 6 months without a CAP coordinator, and it's funding. You know, a lot of these measures require significant funding, so revisiting them and identifying costs moving forward will be a critical factor, and that's part of the process that we're going to have to undergo as part of the general plan update.
Okay, so during the general plan update, we will have to identify funding for the CAP?
We will have to identify measures consistent with what the public and the council wants, but yes, the intention is to identify the ultimate cost of those measures so that the council can be aware of the cost ultimately of implementing the plan.
This is definitely where I think the conversation needs to go. I think we all agree that there's more we want to add, but I think financing is the biggest challenge. And I think we have opportunities even within this calendar year to identify funding sources to at least chip away at some of these projects. So if there is something that our staff needs from the council in terms of approval of funds or additional positions, then I want to know what the gaps are so that we can take action on that. Because I don't really feel comfortable having a plan that we're not able to fulfill. And it's ultimately our responsibility to give our staff the tools to fulfill the plans that we are, having a think tank right now. I also agree that I would like to see more participatory workshops. Let's get people in round tables, starting to mind map out certain projects that are relevant for their neighborhoods. I think all of our workshops can be a little bit more participatory so that we can really get the wealth and the richness of the community into the session. But as the comments we're able to provide now, I think that there was a lot of great information, and it's a good place to start. I also think that there's a lot that we're doing outside the CAP that we can mark as, oh, this is related to the CAP, right? And we can plug it in. So I'll go over some of those, but thank you for letting me know kind of where we're at with financing and staffing. Thank you, Imelda and Cassidy, for your presentation. In regards to charging stations, I think it's really exciting. I think it would have been helpful to have a map of where those locations are so that we can visually see for kind of location equity purposes. I tried to, identify those locations, from my own memory, but it was just at a glance a little bit hard to tell. And I think even Deputy Mayor mentioned your district might have a high need for those accommodations, so wanting to make sure they're distributed throughout the community. The lighting and efficiency goals, the energy efficiency goals, and our efforts to light neighborhoods with more efficient lighting, that's something that I have been really invested in. I appreciate Councilmember Green bringing up, are we going to let these neighborhoods know before we illuminate their street? And that was definitely a question I also asked to staff. I think it was some of the musical streets in my neighborhoods, Bach and the others, right, that were being recommended for all this lighting, right? And talking to residents there, I knew that they wanted it, but I'm sure they wanted to see it first. So it's cool that we're going to be able to have almost like a pop-up showcase of the lighting. And then once I did receive kind of that first couple phases, I did my own lighting survey where I just solicited feedback from the community. And that's actually where I got some recommendations for Santa Clara and down, Grapevine area. And people were like, pick me, right? We want lighting too. And then provided those recommendations to our consultant. And with those recommendations, we can't guarantee lighting everywhere. There kind of has to be different factors. I think current infrastructure being available is one of them, and an identified need from the studies done by the consultant. But overall, I think lighting is going to be really helpful. It also will be an energy use, right? To some extent, we're looking at it for efficiency purposes, but additional lighting will be using more energy. And that's something to consider for the community. And it's also something to consider for our climate goals. I think that that's going to be a theme overall that I want to make sure that we're cognizant of. And this is a conversation I've had on regional boards as well, which is that if you kind of look at national trends and our energy uses, energy consumption, we are using more energy in general. You know, we're using more renewables and we're using more fossil fuels. And so when you consider that, we also need to create opportunities in the plan where we are actively creating programs that use no energy, right? Things like active transportation programs where people on their 2 feet, they can walk to where they want to go super comfortably, right? They don't have to get in their car to cross their street. I have, a lot of my neighborhoods that I represent, people feel like it's a little bit hostile to walk in their neighborhood. Maybe there's no shade. I know that it's kind of if you look at a heat map, there's not a lot of shade in my neighborhoods. Maybe there's not adequate sidewalk infrastructure, but for a lot of reasons, people feel like they can't use active transportation. They don't feel safe on their bicycles, what have you. But when it comes to the choice between using a gas-powered vehicle, which are still going to be in existence for quite some time, using an electric-powered vehicle, and riding a bicycle or walking, riding a bicycle and walking are the most fuel efficient. You're really just fueling it with your lunch, and you can get to where you need to go if you have the proper infrastructure, right? So if we can conceptualize ways to invite programming that uses no energy at all, that might be a little bit better, because we are using more energy than ever. As a society, we are using more energy than ever. And I think in some areas we don't need to. Right? I think we can be more efficient, more conservative with our energy, while still having positive lifestyles and healthy lifestyles that we enjoy. So that's something I want to inject in the conversation. With that, solar panels, excited for those. I'm excited for them on the Civic Center, on the fire station. I would also support microgrids and solar panels everywhere. This is where our council can be helpful in providing direction to staff. What kind of planning do we need to do to be competitive for grants? If we have a city parking lot inventory, and for every city parking lot, we have plans developed for solar panels and microgrids, would we then be more competitive to go out for grants? Are there grants currently available for those types of projects? If the council were to say, okay, on all of these parking lots, we're going to develop microgrid systems, would you say that we could compete for grants for that?
Yes, I think there's a lot of grant opportunities out there at this moment. And I definitely think that in certain neighborhoods, definitely it would be more competitive than others. But Cassidy and Angie have been working very closely on any CAP-related grants that are currently available.
Yeah, so I want to help you with that. So let's do the planning, right? I think that starting with city properties is a great way to do it, right? We don't necessarily have to enforce it on private property in order to be effective. We can look at parking lots, we can look at other city facilities, but to develop more plans for microgrids, it's also really great to do in conjunction with CEA. Over time, CEA is going to have greater capacity to do community projects, and microgrids are definitely something that is possible with CEA support. So it doesn't just have to be city funding, right? It can be city funding, state funding, county funding. and our JPA resources that are able to be allocated for these different purposes. So solar panels, I think that the programming for solar panels needs to be really enhanced in the CAP, really taken on and as its own section, because it does include microgrids. I'm not an energy expert, but I think that there's a lot to learn there. So I would love to see them everywhere. I support that as well. The concern about the removal of trees for the Civic Center portion of solar panels, I'm understanding of that, right? Because our goal is to plant more trees anyhow, but I also have concerns about the landscaping in front of the Civic Center. The roses are beautiful, but they really don't provide the robust public benefit that I think landscaping should provide in a public facility. There are beautiful native plants. There are beautiful pollinating plants, right? Native grasses that could offer beauty and sequestering carbon, all while still being within the public accessibility. So I appreciate your suggestion, Deputy Mayor, about a pocket forest. I also don't want the look of the landscaping in front of the Civic Center to be obstructive, right? Or there's like tall trees. So if we were to convert landscaping from, very water dependent roses to native and very sustainable grasses and pollinating plants, I think that I would want to lean more in that direction versus a pocket forest. Because it can sequester carbon as well. I see you glaring at me, but I think I'm right about that one. Next, I would say, in addition to landscaping, to consider the removal of trees from the Civic Center, I think we need to also have a conversation about landscaping throughout city-owned properties in general. There was a public comment mentioned in relation to stopping the use of harmful pesticides. So now that we're moving forward with an integrated pest management plan, check, that's part of our CAP as well, right? We absolutely get to claim that and to acknowledge that the removal of harmful chemical pesticides from our public spaces is part of our CAP. And one of the methods that we can use for an integrated pest management plan is the use of native plants instead of, plants that need a lot of management. So I would like to make sure that we consider that, incorporate our IPM into the conversation with the CAP. Then there's also tree equity. I understand the importance of trees is partially about reducing carbon, but it's really about the cooling effect. And we know that the climate crisis is global, right? And as one city, we're not going to solve climate change, but we can make significant improvements to our immediate environment to provide cooling to the community. If you look at heat maps of where there are trees that are very prolific in a neighborhood versus a more barren neighborhood, there's a huge difference in surface temperature. And if you look specifically at some of the neighborhoods in District 3 where I represent, you will find that there are neighborhoods that are quite barren and extremely hot. And those are the types of neighborhoods that I'm really concerned about when I think of active transportation. People want to get out. They want to be able to walk to the park, walk to school, and they find themselves in a very hostile environment when there's not public amenities like trees to be able to provide that cooling effect. So anything that we can do as a council to provide planning and feedback and financing to enhance our tree canopy, I think needs to be a really high priority in the CAP. And I think just along with the solar panels, we're also going to be able to go out for grants for tree canopy. So in regards to things to add, I had a little bit of a question about development And, oh, wait, I missed one of my things I wanted to review with CEA. So CEA, I think, is probably the most meaningful contribution to our cap and reducing our carbon footprint, essentially. And we will be rolling out in 2024. So just for the benefit of the public and information for the public, the City of Vista has decided to join an organization that is a public organization to provide and procure energy for our community. So instead of being dependent on, SDG&E, which prioritizes fossil fuels, we are breaking up SDG&E and we are joining CEA, Clean Energy Alliance, and we will be rolling out their energy programs in 2024. I think it is important to keep the cost a reasonable amount that is at the same amount or less than SDG&E, because ultimately we will get less people opting out. When we roll out CEA in 2024, in April of 2024, it's going to be an opt-in model, right? People aren't just going to be able to choose from SDG&E and CEA on their own. All of the customers within the City of Vista, and including the City of Vista, administration ourselves, we are going to be opting, being brought in to CEA. And if we don't want to participate, you can opt out. But if people have the same or lower rates, they're able to use 75% of their energy from renewable sources, that ends up contributing to a lot of people staying in the program and not opting out. So that's something we should really look forward to. It's going to be really important for us to have a successful rollout of the program so that we can educate people and let them know what their options are and what the benefits are. And by leading by example and going forward with 100% renewable energy, we show to the public that, this is something that is going to be a benefit for the community, and you can, stay with CEA and it will be great for your household as well. I did want to check in with Barbara, and maybe Barbara, you can support us, our wonderful CEO with Clean Energy Alliance, to speak a little bit about vintage pricing and PCIA rates and how that would affect customers.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Melendez and Board Member Melendez, your City of Vista's board member. So when, as was mentioned during the presentation, actually all customers in SDG&E territory pay PCIA, but if you're what's considered a fully bundled customer, which means you receive both your transmission and delivery services as well as them selling you the electricity commodity, the PCIA is included in the generation cost or the commodity cost. So it's not a separate line item. When a customer leaves SDG&E and becomes a customer of Clean Energy Alliance, that then is still on the bill, but it's broken out as a new line item. And so because customers have really never seen it before, they think it's a new line item. The PCIA, or generally known as the exit fee, is based on a portfolio of contracts that SDG&E has entered into on behalf of the customers in the City of Vista. And they'd entered into those contracts over the past several years as part of planning for serving those customers. Now those customers are leaving, and they don't have customers to sell that energy to. And the remaining customers are legally are to be indifferent to a customer's choice of being part of a community choice energy program. So to the extent that SDG&E doesn't recover all of the costs of those contracts by selling them on the open market, that difference is paid for through the exit fee by the community choice energy, by Clean Energy Alliance customers. The vintage refers to the portfolio of contracts that are being compensated for or reimbursed for. And it's determined based on the date that the customers leave SDG&E. So it's once that portfolio is set, it doesn't change. And over time it gets smaller because those contracts eventually reach their ending date. So over time, the PCIA or exit fee does reduce and will eventually go away, but it is something that will be on the bills for long term, because many of those contracts that were entered into can go 15, 20 years. So that's what the vintagey refers to. And just starting this month, SDG&E has made an upgrade to their bills as requested by Clean Energy Alliance and San Diego Community Power, that on the PCIA line item, it actually will tell the customer what vintage they're in and the actual per kilowatt hour rate. Previously, it just said PCIA and the total amount. So now the customers will have the benefit of knowing what vintage they're in and how that charge was calculated.
Thank you so much. I don't know if anyone would have additional questions for Barbara, but I really appreciate that explanation. And for just clarification, PCIA rates are something that current SDG&E customers do pay, right? But as we roll into CEA programs, we would be paying for them just in a different way.
Correct. That's right.
Okay. And so in the long term, CEA offers sustainable rates and also programming for our community. So I'm really looking forward to that. And Barbara Boswell has served as our CEO and has done a tremendous job. And she's actually in the transition of leaving the organization, all in good fun to probably enjoy her life a little bit more and, move on and retire. But I do appreciate all of your work and being able to work with you. So I just want to acknowledge your service and say thank you. Awesome. And then I want to move into a conversation about just some other things to add. For example, recycling and waste receptacles. I brought forward a discussion to a city council meeting a couple months ago, and I think we had the council support for at least tobacco receptacles, but I think there may have been conversations about recycling receptacles and that sort of thing. All of those things should also be included in the cap. It's stuff we're already doing. We want to be able to kind of take credit for, plug it into the cap that we have. I'm supportive of the preservation of open space. I'm also supportive of food recovery. I think that this is really interesting. Councilmember Green, you brought this up. Food recovery is huge, right? Again, we're using so much energy already. So if we can find a way to just be efficient with the energy that we have, whether it's from a food source or, from a transportation modality, then we can improve our efficiencies. And what I've learned is that some of the biggest challenges with food recovery include transportation, storage, right? How does the surplus food get to distribution centers? Storage, where is it stored? Do we have refrigeration capacity for it, especially if it's fresh produce? And then also things like fabrication. So being able to coordinate with commercial kitchens to take surplus produce that is transported to a commercial kitchen and then fabricated into, stir fry mix and just different types of meals that can actually benefit the community and maybe even be put back on the market or be provided at, at a food bank or just provided for free for benefit of the community because it's surplus. So it's something I'm passionate about. I grew up with my grandfather running a food distribution program out of his home. And so when I think about food insecurity and all the surplus food that we have in our region, I'm wondering, hey, is there more that the city of Vista can do, right? We do have kitchen space, right? We have commercial appropriate kitchen facilities that maybe could be contracted with an organization to conduct that type of surplus food fabrication, so it can actually be beneficial to the community. So just throwing that one out there. It's kind of not totally relevant, but I am passionate about that. And then I also support transportation infrastructure enhancements for things like walkability, cycling, just being able to get people into a more natural rhythm of movement to go about where they want to go. I mean, it's been really hot, y'all. Like, it's October, and I'm not really feeling the fall vibes. It's super hot out there, and like, I'm confused, the birds are confused, the critters are confused. I don't think that what we're experiencing right now with our immediate weather patterns are good. I don't think that they're good for our bodies or for our community. We need some relief from the heat. And what we see is that, especially people who are vulnerable and elderly, if you don't have adequate cooling time, it can be really damaging to your organs and just not good for your health. So for the folks that do have issues with accessing air conditioning, right, I want to make sure we provide more cool zones for them too. And maybe there's some sort of insulation programming that we can do for people's homes, some type of appliance services that we could help support and provide for people, because we got to find ways to cool people down. I agree with Deputy Mayor. It's an energy issue. The climate crisis is a resource management issue, but it's also a public health issue. So a lot of these efforts that we're looking at are seeking to manage our resources more efficiently, but I think the ultimate goal is to protect public health. So if we have any kind of consensus on any of these things, I know I supported different comments that my fellow council members have made, but the main thing I would love to hear from everyone as we kind of continue this conversation and we're hearing from everyone is, what are we going to do about financing our plan? Do we want to designate a pot of money to our cap for us to then review and parse through, okay, within the cap, we have X amount of dollars, and then within the cap, what are our top priorities? And then how can we even match funds, right? Maybe we contribute some funds to a project. It allows us to be more competitive for grants. So what do y'all think about financing? Because there's a lot of great ideas of what we can do. I think with these public workshops, we can talk for a long time about all the great things that we want to do, but especially because some of the plans that we've requested haven't been able to be successfully worked on, we really need to provide some direction on financing. Otherwise, we're going to kind of get into this pattern of, well, we can't do it because we don't have direction on financing. So I would love to have that conversation tonight. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important aspect is, not to just have a really good plan, but to be able to implement it. Because at the end of the day, if you don't implement it, then, the plan is meaningless. So I think it'd be great to have some kind of a climate fund or a climate equity fund that we can, allocate some money towards and have it ready to go for any of the grants that we apply for. So that way we can ensure that we have matching funds or whatever the case might be. And a lot of times with, these grants, the grant money is a huge amount compared to what we have to put in. So I think even, $250,000 for some kind of a cap fund could be really meaningful in being able to pursue grants that have, some kind of a city match to it. But I'm supportive of looking at some kind of financing and having funds set aside to be able to implement our cap. And you know, that also means that we need to have a prioritization of our strategies. So, you know, along with financing comes prioritization, which is, you know, it's difficult. It's going to be difficult for this body to prioritize, but certainly, you know, looking at equity and looking at impact, meaning, you know, where we can reduce the most amount of greenhouse gas emissions, that should be part of the prioritization framework. I pressed my button again because I wanted to ask about strategy 1, T3, where it says require EV charging stations at new multifamily and commercial developments. And I'm looking at our climate action plan, and we had a goal by 2030 to install 188 new EV charging stations at new multifamily developments. Do we know how many have been installed of that 188?
We've only had a handful of projects that have done that because this measure was fairly recent in development timeframe. It's probably 10 or 15 at the most, honestly. Moving forward, yes, the large multifamily developments have a condition to add EV charging, but it's just a time frame issue, really.
Okay, and how many? I think I saw something about 3% of the parking spaces have to be EV.
That may be a state requirement. I'll have to look at that. As far as what our condition is, I'll have to look. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would like to get more information on that. And this is like kind of what I mean about the dashboard, right? If we have a goal and we have a benchmark of 2030 or a target date of 2030, we need to benchmark it on an annual basis and say, you know, this is where we're at now, right? We're at 10. We have to get to 188, right? So, and same thing for, you know, the commercial developments. But I wanted to bring this up because we have had recent single-family homes developments brought online. And there's not a stipulation for that. Obviously, you know, at a single-family home, you can charge at your house. It's going to be ready for charging, I believe, right? However, there's usually guest parking. So I think that it could be a reasonable addition to T3 to include any new single-family home developments to also have a certain amount of EV charging for their guest parking. So I just want to throw that out there. And even though this is not something that we're talking about when it comes to carbon sequestration and transportation and all that, the other categories, I think it would be great. I mean, we're 19 square miles of a city. We should be an example of connectivity. So we should be able to, you know, in my neck of the woods, I should easily be able to come to the Civic Center. I actually can't. It's kind of hard. I'm looking forward to those protected bike lanes because it's like, you know, a 10-minute bike ride versus a 45-minute walk with like very little trees. And then even if I take public transit, I have to go to the Vista Transit Center, and then I have to connect to the bus that leaves me over here. And in that time, it's just easier just to walk from the transit center to here. So anyways, I think that we can look at even urban, rural kind of trails in the city and kind of patch together some really cool, you know, different public amenities that are trail-based. We have a lot of amazing parks and open space here in the city, and being able to connect to those is going to be critical. And then being able to connect those to one another is critical. And that's like a regional type of project that maybe we can get funding for if we have, if we can show, that it is a regional impact. Because I would love for folks to be able to connect to Carlsbad. I would love Carlsbad along Palomar Airport Road. A lot of folks go to work over there. And right now, your option is pretty much to be stuck in traffic 2 times a day. So anyways, I feel like we could do a lot better within our city and to connect our city even to our neighboring cities like Carlsbad and Oceanside. I think a lot of folks would appreciate that. So anyways, thank you all so much. I know it's really difficult to take on a climate action plan. So I really commend staff on all the hard work that's gone into it. But I know that we can do better. And with more community workshops, we can ensure that, the public feels like they are heard. And, in the future with an environmental commission, this is something that, they can continue to work on in a focused manner as well. So thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Just a couple quick things. One, yes, a partnership with Vista Unified on cool zones, utilizing schools and working with them, because to have 2 in our city of over 100,000 people, we need more. I did want to ask, is Barbara still available?
Yes, council member, I'm here.
Barbara, thank you for all your quick work. I just had 2 quick questions for you. In relation to the CEA, the California Public Utilities Company right now is trying to impose a flat rate fee to anybody who is on the grid. Does the CEA or us being a part of that protect our residents from having that fee imposed against them?
Thank you for that question. So the decision or the question before the California Public Utilities Commission is actually in response to an assembly bill. I believe it's 215, I'll look it up, but Assembly Bill 215, which passed, it was a budget trailer bill, a state budget trailer bill, which requires all public utilities, including SDG&E, to change their methodology for how they charge customers for transmission and delivery. Right now, it's volumetric, so it's a cents per kilowatt hour based on how much you use. The law requires that they implement a portion of your transmission delivery charges be flat fee, and that the rate of the flat fee would be based on income. And so all customers within SDG&E territory, whether or not you participate in Clean Energy Alliance, are affected by this this charge. I guess the thought behind that is that the goal is that lower income people should see a decrease in their costs, and SDG&E's costs or their expenses aren't changing, so that difference is made up from higher charges, flat rate charges, to higher income households.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're an expert on all of this. It sounds like you're very knowledgeable, so I just had another question for you on that. So that means that even if you've put solar on top of your roof, even if you've replaced all your appliances, even if you've done everything to lower or even eliminate your use of electricity off the grid, you would still be required to submit your income to the California Public Utility Companies or SDG&E, and you would get charged regardless of whether or not you are using their energy.
So that is correct. The question of where the income verification, how it happens or where it happens, is yet to be determined. But you are correct. So currently customers with solar, it's possible if they manage their usage well, and they could have no bill every month from SDG&E because they're utilizing or maximizing their credits. With the new flat rate, irrespective of your system, you will be charged a minimum charge. So those bills will go up.
And again, this is not your issue. I'm just curious. So you may actually end up, based on income, paying more than what you might have otherwise paid on a monthly fee or on a monthly basis.
Yes, that's,
Okay. I'm going to have a lot of questions for SDG&E when this comes up, so don't worry. But I really appreciate you answering those questions. The other question I did have, so I know that the city will be opting in, or I believe will be opting in at 100% is what we've thought or we agree upon. Is what rate will our residents be opted in? Will they be at the same 100%? Will they be brought in at 75% or 50%?
and that's the decision for the council to make at a November meeting coming up, is to determine which of our 3 power supply products will be considered the default, which will be the product customers are enrolled in, unless that the individual customers then make an alternative decision of the other 2 choices.
Perfect. That was all I have. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then the only other thing I want, well, a couple other things. As far as food recapture, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of One Kitchen in Oceanside, but they do a fantastic job and are a great model for what that looks like when providing, recapturing food so it doesn't go to waste, and utilizing it to feed those that are in need. So I think that would be an excellent model. I don't know if there's anything we can do. Not suggesting we partner with them specifically, but if there's other organizations within Vista we can look at to maybe work with our community, work with our businesses to try and build something or collaborate in that way. When we talk about climate action, the reason I brought up the flat rate fee is because I genuinely believe it will set back everything that our residents or what we've tried to accomplish when it comes to lowering our energy consumption. And I do plan to bring it forward to this council for a larger discussion. But the fact that people have invested so much of their hard-earned money to make sure they're doing their part to eliminate their carbon footprint, to eliminate their use of energy, and we are going to be literally imposed with a fee, is just a horrific thing to even consider. So I just wanted to make sure that the public is aware of it, because they've done a very good job of hiding it so far, which is why most people aren't aware of it. And I'll look forward to a future discussion about it.
And I will join you in your call for a resolution from this council to oppose that policy. And it's a bad policy. Ms. Boswell, I had a resident that asked me, and maybe you might know some more about the impact of a CEA on solar customers.
So we have a Clean Energy Alliance does have a net energy metering program as well. Current customers who currently are enrolled with SDG&E are there are 2 and soon to be 3 different net energy metering programs, depending on when the systems went live on the customer's rooftop. NEM 1.0 is the very first version, and the older version, NEM 2.0, is a little bit newer, and the difference is how the customer's bills are calculated. And then the new version is NEM 3.0, or now termed Solar Billing Plan. Customers continue to stay in their same plan. So customer who is grandfathered and is at NEM 1.0, then they will stay with NEM 1.0, and they will enroll with us as under NEM 1.0 and stay on their current rates. Same with NEM 2.0. The new solar billing plan, which goes live with SDG&E on December the 15th, our board will be considering whether or not Clean Energy Alliance will also implement a similar net energy metering program at their October meeting. The short story is the value that the customer gets, or the credit they get for their solar system, will no longer be based on the retail rates. They will be based on an avoided cost calculator, which is significantly lower. It results in customers having a higher bill than they would otherwise have had under NEM 2.0, and it extends the payback period of the systems from 5 years to about 9 years. So so that's what's happening with SDG&E. Clean Energy Alliance, our board has not yet taken that under consideration, but they will be at the October meeting. So that's kind of what's on the horizon in terms of what the differences would be, or the impact for net energy metering customers.
Is it your opinion or knowledge that the flat fee that SDG&E is pursuing would also apply to solar customers?
Yes, it will.
I think that's a particular injustice. People that have invested tens of thousands of dollars to try and reduce their impact on the climate and produce clean energy, and were induced to do so by the state of California, the federal government, to then have a flat, large fee assessed to them every month when they invested significantly to try and get to a net zero energy proposition. That really is very bothersome. I just want to thank all of our staff. Our staff's been working on our CAP since 2012, when we passed the first one, long before any of us here on the council were serving. So this has been a document that's been growing and evolving. And of course, I thank all of our residents who've participated in that process as our climate action plan has evolved. I was thinking about the 36,000 trees. We need 180 acres to plant 36,000 trees. That's a lot of land. And as I've said in past conversations, I'm strongly supportive of that. Strongly supportive of planting more shade trees wherever we can. I think we should call for staff to bring us a plan to plant those trees and a cost associated with it, because I think we all support that. So if there's agreement, then let's do that. Let's ask for a plan to plant more trees, figure out where they're going to go and how much it's going to cost. We're going to have to bring irrigation to some of those areas to irrigate those trees so that they survive. But I think that's a noble goal, and I think it'll beautify, cool, and create more oxygen. So let's do that. Deputy Mayor.
I just wanted to be in support of your recommendation for staff to do that. And I wanted to add an additional comment to your recommendation to see if the council's supportive. There are also some trees that are not doing so well. I've seen some sycamores that have been at the same height for a lot of years, and I don't think they're going to get any bigger, and they're not really providing, the amount of shade that we would hope. So I don't know if it was just like not good planting that happened, but I think any kind of urban tree, canopy management plan that we have should also look at trees that are underperforming and see what we could do. Maybe it's an irrigation issue there, but I think that we need to take a look at that and not, maybe there's a way to replace the tree so that we can get a healthier tree and actually achieve the shade goals that we have. So I think it would be important to identify those, underperforming trees and replace them maybe with a better performing tree, or see what the underlying issue is as to why it hasn't grown to its capacity. Because some of these, sycamores get huge, and I've seen some of these that are only a little bit bigger than me, which is not very tall, and they've been there for a while. So, but thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, along that line, in Councilmember Green's district on Eucalyptus Avenue, we have some absolutely massive eucalyptus trees, which the residents there now actually want removed, owing to the fact that one of them destroyed a house. And very recently, a branch, not a tree, but a branch that was the size of a tree, fell off one of those and crushed an F-150 pickup truck. Thank God nobody was in it. But this is something I've been following closely. We're going to unfortunately have to remove those trees because it's become an absolute safety imperative that we do so. And but I'd love to hear suggestions for what we plant in their place, because I'd like to see something that would beautify that corridor. It's a shame that eucalyptus will no longer bear eucalyptus trees, but they're probably not a responsible planting. They're not native, and they're fire hazard, and unfortunately, they're known to be widow makers for a reason. They are super dangerous, so they grow quickly, and they're not a strong tree, so the wind blows these massive pieces of them off and creates a great life safety hazard. So, but I'd love to plant something there that's You know, this is one of the things also that we have an obligation to do. We have landscape plans with all of our developments, and as trees get mature and it's necessary to remove those trees, we need to do an adequate job talking about enforcement. We need to make sure that people are replanting trees and replanting enough trees that they will survive to maturity. And we need to be encouraging not only our city staff, but also our homeowners associations to be planting and culling on a periodic cycle so that not all the trees are 40 years old and they need to be cut down. It would be great to have a cycle of trees that the mature ones can be removed without removing all of the mature trees. I see that a lot, and it's super frustrating because then a neighborhood that benefited from a lot of mature trees and shade is all of a sudden barren, and it will be for another 30 years. So I think that's something that we could do a better job of working with our development partners to make sure that their landscape plans are honored, because that is something they're required to maintain in perpetuity. I support all the photovoltaic at all of our facilities. I like the idea of generating on-site to the extent that we can. I'm not sure about electric fire engines or ambulances. I don't want to be the first to try those out. Be happy once they're proven technology, but I do not want to experiment with that. Just wanted to put that on the record. Councilmember O'Donnell.
I am not advocating for them. I'm simply saying if we are going to be required to have them, we should have a plan in place. That is all I'm saying.
I completely agree with you about new fire stations should be built, and we should be building new fire stations with sufficient electrical infrastructure to charge those vehicles. That's, you know, I mean, I just upgraded my electric panel at home to accommodate for electric vehicles, went to 200 amps so that we could charge EVs. We don't own any today, but I anticipate probably our next round of vehicles that we buy in our household being electric. And so I wanted to make sure that our house was ready for that. And I would think at this point, anything that we build going forward, we would want to be electrically equipped and not need to go back. City Manager Conley.
I just wanted to touch on the CEA rates real quickly with the council so that we all are on the same page. I feel like it's my responsibility to discuss this particular issue for one reason. Our objective with CEA in establishing the rates is to have as many customers stay in the program and not opt out as possible. That's how we're going to get the most financial benefit in the long run and really get the most environmental benefit as well. We are setting the rates for all of our customers in Vista by what we choose with this. So if we choose a rate that is higher than what SDG&E charges, we have a high potential to lose a lot of customers that are going to opt out very quickly when they find out that they could save money by going back to SDG&E. So I would recommend that when we set the rates for the customers in the city, maybe the city we look at differently because we can be the example. But for the residential customers and commercial customers, it would be ideal if we could set a rate where it's at or below what SDG&E rates are so we don't run a high risk of losing a lot of customers in the opt-out. And then people that want to opt up to green impact and do 100% renewable certainly have the ability to do that, but we're not forcing that on them. So that's just something to think about in how we consider the rates when that comes before us in November.
I think that's an important point, and I would agree with that. Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Yeah, I just wanted to lend support, 100% here, right? The city and all our facilities, we can take on that cost difference. But, I think it is important to, even folks at the lowest tier of 50%, that is still better. So it's a good baseline, and I look forward to that conversation in November because I want this to be a very successful program, and folks will have the ability to go up a few tiers if they financially can do that. But I think it's really important for us to be very cognizant of having the most folks participate that we possibly can, because also, right now we're paying SDG&E and we don't get any benefits back. So the more folks that can be part of CEA, the more that money accumulates and we can provide, different things like discounts to folks. We can have, workforce development. We can have all these different types of programs. And if we have a lot of folks opting out, that's not going to work. So I appreciate that comment from our city manager.
A lot of folks ask on Nextdoor this evening about an explosion that happened in South Vista or it was visible from South Vista, and our sheriff's captain let me know that they set off a flashbang tonight for our junior deputy program that may or may not have been the cause of a large flash of light that was visible and a boom. But I thought I would mention that because it's a buzz on Nextdoor. Seeing nothing else for the good of the order and no other comments, we're adjourned.
We have one more quick comment?